Here we are in Devon on a lovely sunny day. We're about a mile outside Honiton, and we're on the site of the old army camp. It used to be the headquarters of the Royal Electrical and Mechanical Engineers. It closed in the late 60s, and in 1972 was commandeered as a resettlement camp for the Ugandan Asians. And altogether, 2,200 of the Ugandan Asians were housed here at Heathfield. And then by the end of March of 1973, they'd all managed to find homes outside, and they'd headed off to other parts of the country. But this is a very important part of the local history of Honiton, which isn't at all known to the local people. And that is part of the reason why we're doing this project.
When I came here 22 years ago, I realised that the people who started the museum only collected something, really old things, and there was nothing in the museum related to anything past 1920. Honiton's famous for three things: Honiton lace, which is world famous; Honiton pottery, there's a huge number of collectors of that; and the Honiton hippos, because 17 hippos were found, or bodies of 17 hippos were found in the 1960s. So there's a huge, great gap to fill of information on artefacts relating to Honiton, and a huge chunk of history of Honiton relates to Heathfield Camp. Literally tens of thousands of people went through that camp since it was built in the 1940s, starting with the ATS were trained there. A lot of Americans were here before they went to Slapton Sands. 300 of the people who went from here were killed at Slapton Sands, and then there were tens of thousands of other soldiers that were here. And then, of course, the Ugandan Asians.
That's where the youth club was. Remember, we used to sneak out from the back. That's the youth club. Yeah. So what it was basically, that was all the huts for the normal army people. Yeah. All the senior officers were there. That's why these were brick built. Now, one question that people have always asked is why the huts were haphazard, and somebody's put an explanation saying that the Germans were so keen on firing in a parallel line, so they made it odd. I get it. So I don't know, all the army camps were...
Makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah. You have to realize that to set up this camp, they had 3 weeks. One week was cleared out. Within 2 weeks, hundreds of locals turned up.
Excellent. Loads of clothes were donated because most of them came with...
Is it WRVS?
Yeah, WRVS.
I just want an archive so that if anyone's interested in the future, they can come here and find something and learn about what happened here. Because a small market town like Honiton, having 1,800 people come here in a short space of time was huge.
Idi Amin made its decision to evacuate everybody. It obviously dominated the news coverage at the time. And there was actually a real debate within the Conservative Party about whether they could accept more, in quotes, immigrants. And so it wasn't straightforward, the politics at the time.
Before anybody arrived in Honiton from Uganda, my mother had been contacted by Bunty Charles and another lady called Beryl Schulteis, who was a friend of my mother's, and she was asked if she would help prepare the army camp huts for the Ugandan Asians to arrive. Bunty Charles was head of WRVS, I believe, and she would phone around and see who she could get to help, and I think she just knew that my mother would muck in and get on with the job, which she did a lot.
When I first went to the camp, because obviously the camp used to be a military camp, so I had been in it before when it was used as a full military camp for different soldiers or whatever. And then went there, and there was all these Indian nations there, and they looked lost. A lot did look lost, which is quite understandable, isn't it? Obviously, they'd just been wrenched out of their country, banged into a country which they didn't know. Some struggled to understand the language.
Initially, it was about waiting for the flights to come in and coaches would arrive. People would arrive with very little luggage in a rather cold winter. And the first issues was just very basic things like providing warm clothing for people, at least trying to assist them with what was quite often traumatic surroundings when they're leaving Uganda. Many had pretty horrible experiences in Kampala airport before leaving, were treated quite roughly by the army there and other people. So people were inevitably traumatized.
We were lucky enough to be able to get our exit trust, tickets, etc. sorted out. But there were dozens and dozens of people, families, who didn't have any means or ability to get their passports or things sorted out. And I know that a lot of community elders got together and sponsored their exit. And what I mean by sponsored is they turn around and say, we've got a family here, they've got a British passport, they can get onto a plane, and we need to find 5 tickets for them. And all the businessmen would chip in and give them more money. And I know of 3 families who lost their loved ones because they couldn't get out in time. 2 of them, the family got out, but they never saw their husbands ever. One, we realized that the army was after them, and he had to go up country and lived a very simple life in some village for good 2 or 3 years before he emerged, and his family assumed that he was dead. But the 2 people who left behind, we don't know what happened to them. The family has arrived in UK, and obviously Red Cross did a search for him, but they never found what happened to the family.
So you feel that you had to try and welcome them and make them feel wanted, and which is a lot of the volunteers. Bunty Charles, who was part of the women's voluntary service, fantastic lady, known her for years. She actually obviously was big help to introducing it and making feel welcome. My father, again, because of his ability to understand the language and his past experiences. So it makes you feel they were feeling welcome and they knew that they were going to be looked after.
So my mother agreed to do it, and within a very short time she had enlisted myself to help her. I was still living at home at the time. I was 17 and I was at college, so weekends or any time I had off, we were up at the army camp trying to make the rooms look a little bit better and making up beds, of which there seemed at the time to be hundreds of metal beds that all had to have sheets and blankets put onto them.
We had probably up to about half a dozen volunteers who were resident in the centre with me.
The first memory of the camp was getting off a coach on a cold, dark evening and being ushered into the main reception hall where there was a whole lot of clothing laid out, and we were traversed through several tables, and then after that going into the medical camp and having some x-rays taken. And then we were assigned by, I remember distinctly and vividly, a WRVS lady was there who said, they've been assigned to hut number 15. And we were escorted by a member of the Red Cross to hut number 15 as a family.
As I stepped out, was 7th October 72, and it was pretty cold. It's like blizzard, honestly. It was just sort of rain, cold, wind, a lot. And I didn't think I was going to last more than 3 months in that. I mean, I didn't come up with jackets and cardigans and stuff like that. But they very kindly led us to a place where we could get warm clothing and registered ourselves.
The only way to describe it, that your audience may understand it, is consider a modern garden shed, a wooden slatted shed. That's what the huts were like, but rather larger than the garden shed, and it accommodated approximately 4 families of 4, with one bucket toilet by the doorway. And there were no walls, there were just wooden partitions or screens and two sort of a table and camp beds which folded in, which were made of wood as well, 2 blankets, and that was it. No carpet, no nothing.
And I always wanted to see the snow. I thought it would be fun, but it wasn't quite the fun I thought it was going to be at the time.
My grandma, who lived with us, was very worried about how cold they all were. So she was desperately knitting scarves, hats, jumpers. And I'm told that there was a big collection of clothes and they put them down in the crypt in the church, to the point that they couldn't have Sunday school in the crypt because it was so full of clothes. Now, I long since left the church because I'd gone to college, so I didn't witness that myself. But I have a friend who said she wasn't able to go to Sunday school because the crypt was full of clothes. So it must have been a concern for the people of Honiton that these people were not sufficiently dressed, because the ladies had a sari with perhaps a cardigan over it, and they would have been freezing. It was winter time.
Always remember that there was a knock on the door in our hut, and the lady said, can you, all of you guys come to the reception, 10 o'clock in the morning, or whatever time it was. So up we go to the reception, right? Queue up, we queued up. Elder brother in front. Go to the table where the lady said, sign here. My brother said, well, what am I signing for? Social. Well, we just come from Uganda, we didn't know what social was. And the lady did a good job of explaining. So you're entitled until you get a job, but you won't have it. He said, no, don't want charity. I just a skilled guy, and we could, we all talked a bit of English. So I said, we just need a job. So now, until, she shows, well, now, after a few years, they thought, yeah, should have. And my brother turned around and said to all of us, get out of the queue, go and find jobs. And that's why we got involved in the canteen.
I think we should mark the 50th anniversary with a plaque. It's quite opportune that that building, Blackdown House, is owned by the council. And it's exactly on the place where the camp was. And in fact, the entrance was coming down this way. So this used to be an admin.
That was the entrance there. This is where we camped, straight from the airport, straight here.
It is.
I remember the day we camped, 10th of October, snowing.
Every time if I'm heading towards Honiton, I feel at home, because this is the first place where we stayed.
So what we'd like to do is, and we've been talking to council, is to put a commemorative plaque on the plaque to say something of the effect of this is a place where in 1972 nearly 2,000 Ugandan Asians passed through here. And also one other thing they have added was they're going to put a commemorative tree for us.
Okay.
They did everything they could. They put us through, if you wanted to go for further education, people wanted jobs, they found them jobs, different parts of the country, gave them accommodation.
One of the things that is often missed out is how we were helped. And there was a particular lady called Jean Lamb who lived in Thornton, which is not far away from Exeter. She actually got involved through WRVS and through Exeter Cathedral as a helper, a volunteer. She invited us to her mansion at that time in Thornton, which is the original Berry House, for Christmas, and we'd never had a Christmas meal. And she'd asked some young children, one from Blundell's and one from Exeter, to come along to sort of entertain myself and my 2 sisters and some adults. We had a lovely Christmas lunch, a stroke dinner. We saw our first pantomime in the village, and then lo and behold, later on in the evening, when we got back home to her house, there were carol singers, and she asked me to go and open a door, and I was amazed. I'd never seen carol singers before. And we kept in touch with Jean and her son Charlie, who now resides in Nepal, throughout, and we've been firm friends all the way through. And of course the assistance offered by the friends I'd made through my contacts with the Red Cross. And I kept in touch with them, and I stayed in the Red Cross. I became an instructor, an examiner, and an advanced first aider in those days. But then university life, sports, etc. took its toll, and I just keep in touch with some friends along the way.
It would have been very, very difficult as a woman to stay on in Uganda. I still feel quite nervous when I go back. I do still feel the insecurities I had. However, I think I would have been just as accomplished there as I have been here. I was the first girl in my family to go to university and have a degree. So this particular painting was inspired by a journey taken from Kampala to Barara to go meet some friends. And en route we stopped in this wonderful Ugandan cornfield. I can't remember what little village it was, but it was so inspirational, and we stopped for a picnic and it was just great.
I've just retired now, last year, and I was thinking with what these volunteers did for my family, I need to do the same, really. I need to go to a charity shop and work, maybe a couple of days a week to help out. And that's only because of what the guys and the volunteers done for us lot. It's eye-opener, really.
I want the history to be told that it wasn't easy for our parents. Our parents suffered a great deal, came back with nothing, just a handful of items. And look where they are today, 50 years on, accomplished children, brought up their kids. And it would be nice if we could tell that story and that journey, and to make sure that we unite again as people. And it doesn't matter where you're from, black, Asian, white, that we all unite. And I think that's really important to do.
I'm always grateful for that experience. I think it's made me have a bit more humility. It's made me think a bit more positively about people worldwide.
I hope that everybody that we met has made their way in England and been happy here.
I'm always amazed how the human spirit sometimes can really win through in a very positive way. And for me, my human spirit was strengthened with that experience, no doubt.
I can't understand personally how well we achieved a necessity and brought the Ugandan Asians from Kampala into the UK, and I think it went very well. It was a struggle, it was a difficult times for all, and we should have utilised and used those memories and how well we did it, and I can't understand why we can't still do it. With the refugees from Ukraine and Afghanistan, we've done it once. We've shown we've done it. We've shown the world that we can do it.
I think what was remarkable, actually now looking back on it 50 years ago, how incredibly successful so many of those families have since been, and played a very crucial role in increasing the wealth of Britain. I mean, a very large number ended up in Leicester, but Leicester became a very wealthy city as a result of that migration. And many of those people have now gone on to do great things.
We should welcome all, personally. We're all here. We're all Homo sapiens. We're here on this planet, Why can't we just be together?